one thing I think that ends up being misleading is when you look at this paving and maintenance, somebody just picked this up, it's 1 million. Like, they're like, wow, they just.
We ready, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. We'll go ahead and call this working session of the East Peoria City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. This evening, we are going to focus on the capital items of the budget, fiscal year 24-25 budget. This is just discussion only, and I'm going to turn it over to our Finance Director, Jeff Becker. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to start. The first sheet you guys have up there on the top is the marina budget. And then on the first page, you'll see the income. It's just a couple $1,000s less than last year. It's pretty flat. When I talked with Brad, we're still going to be conservative. He did get a few new slip renters with the dredging and hoping to attract some more, but he didn't want to over budget on the revenue side yet until he see how that goes this year. So, and then the most notable thing between the winter storage and the slips, they reallocated how those funds are a little bit. So if that looks different, you'll notice that there. On the back side of that page is the expenditures. You'll see it's in line with 22-23. It's about 15,000 less than last year. They've done a pretty good job with trying to do more stuff in-house and eliminating costs and finding some savings where they could. Not much has changed. There's an increase, obviously, in salaries this year. Everything else has kind of stayed the same. You'll see the restroom cleaning went down. They're doing that in-house now. Increase in utilities. They were a little low on last year. And the rest of that is pretty much in line. Does anybody have any questions on the marina revenues or expenditures?
Commissioners, anyone? No?
Okay. So in the second packet you have is the budget that we went over a couple weeks ago. And then we're going to look at the revenue side. We'll start on the first page. If you look at the bottom where it says total general fund, you'll see there's a 3.9% increase in revenue. And then going back to the top, there is no property tax in the general fund this year. We had to reuse that for other areas, so we removed it. Sales tax, we're showing an increase similar to in line with the actual from 2023. Let's see here. As you go down the page, most of the fees, building permits, license, all that stayed the same. And then at the bottom, you'll see that 1.9 transfer out that's going to offset the deficit in Camp Street TIF, which brings the general fund revenues to $29.4 million. Does anybody have any questions on those before I go to the next ones?
Nope.
Okay. The departments I'll go through pretty quick because they're pretty small, but on page 7, the police department, you'll see most of that has stayed flat except for the reimbursement line was $650 last year. That's down to $180. That was because of that $500,000 grant we had from Senator Kaler. So that's the reduction there. On the next page, on page 9, you'll see the fire department. The biggest change you'll see is that ambulance GMT. It's hard to get a handle on that. Some years it fluctuates up and down, so we've stayed conservative on that. Hopefully that number will come in a little higher. And then above that 2 lines, you'll see that 1.9 million, and this year it's showing 0. That was due to the grants from the firehouse. This is where that difference is on that. On page 11 is solid waste. You'll see everything there stayed pretty much flat. The next 3 or 4 pages, you have Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is mostly property taxes. Same thing with the fire pension, along with the $500,000 state replacement. Same thing on page 14 with the police pension is all taxes and then another $500,000 of state replacement. Page 15 is the bond interest fund. The only revenue there is the property tax from that Access Road 6 SSA. Page 11 is the street department. Everything there is pretty flat. There's a road and bridge tax, and then the township share that they give us of PPRT. And then you'll see the reimbursement was down a little bit there due to that grant we had from Senator Kaler as well with that $300,000. Let's see, page 16, street lighting is property tax. 17, social security is property tax. 18, work comp is the same thing. There's also telecom and state replacement in there. 19, the unemployment's all property tax. Last week, Corey covered his east side revenues, so we'll skip those. Page 24, you have the marina debt service for the TIF, which has stayed pretty flat. 23, hotel motel, Corey spoke to last week. We had that up the hotel motel tax to $1 million this year. Page 27, we get into the TIF. Camp Street TIF, there's a slight increase. The same with the TIF taxes, which is part of the hotel motel taxes. You'll see an increase in the rentals and leases. That's with the conference center lease at Embassy. And then the interfund revenue coming in that offsets the shortfall in that fund. Page 28, again, you'll see a slight increase in property tax in West Washington TIF, an increase from the hotel motel and business district taxes, and then the interest received on that fund. Page 29 is water sewer. There's an increase due to the 3.5%. You'll see the sewer capital stays flat at $3 million because that is locked in at the same rate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no projected increase there.
That'll go up one more time though in the life of that?
The sewer capital, no. The sewer capital part is frozen.
We're
No,
capped out.
we've already reached the max. Yep. Page 34, motor fuel tax, up a little bit from last year, but year over year, that's remained pretty flat. Hopefully, that continues at that level.
Jeff, if you don't mind,
Yep.
I want to touch on that.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, because Commissioner Hill, right before we went live here, and we were talking about the public's perception when they look at our capital thing on street maintenance, and they think, wow, they're not really spending a lot of money, and that's kind of deceiving. But with motor fuel tax funds, one of the things that I'm hopeful of, and I've talked to Senator Kaler about this, I've been pretty vocal, as the state makes a big push to electric vehicles, understand that not a single dime that the state captures when they charge people higher registration fees comes back to local government for road maintenance. And so my concern with motor fuel tax, you know, although the state has built-in increases on the tax at the pump, you know, they're making a push to have more and more people go electric, and none of that revenue is shared with local government. So I'm going to continue to be a big proponent of pushing the state against that, because that will impact us down the road if we don't do something. So I just wanted to make that point while we're on the topic.
Okay, and then finally on page 36, there's Riverboat Gaming. That's estimated this year at 3.5. If you look at 23, you'll see that actual is 4.3. We got a hold harmless payment that year from the state, and we got another one this year. So this year we're going to exceed our budget of our 3.2, but it was only a 2-year payment. So that is going to be eliminated. So that's why you see that 3.5 going forward. And just a reminder, that 615 reimbursement is the repayment of the interfund loan from TIF 3 at the marina. Riverboat Gaming made that whole while they were paying their bonds. Now that money's coming back. That was loaned out. That's all the revenues. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Any question on the revenue side? And we, you know, Jeff and I have talked about this. We've done it for the last 5 years. We're pretty conservative on our numbers. And a lot of it, as you know, these are just projected numbers. And we try to use IML and some other factors weigh in when we try to put together a budget. And thankfully, we're conservative enough, whereas some taxing bodies weren't. We had a little concern on some of the actions the state may take. You know, it's easy for them to come and sweep funds or not disperse a specific amount back to the local government. So we've been pretty conservative in our numbers, and you'll see that play out here in this budget.
Okay, so next to that third sheet you have is the 5-year capital plan. So we're going to do this the same as last year. I'll kind of go through it. If you have any department-specific questions, you can ask that department head and I'll step up and address your questions. So starting at the top, public property, I'm going to focus on 24-25 because that's what's in this budget, and then we'll look at the outlying years after that. So 50,000 Robert had in there for parking lot improvements and 20,000 for additional improvements to buildings. Next department would be the police station, the station engineering, which is currently started at $1 million, and then you'll see the 10 million for the police station and 10 in the following year. Squad cars at 150, and then the last two items, Axon and tasers, are those contractual agreements that we already had in place. The fire department, AED replacement at 2,500, 35,000 for a monitor, and then an ambulance at 350. Solid waste, 350,000 for a garbage truck. Street department's got 200,000 for a plow truck, and then 10,500,000 of paving maintenance. On the back of your sheet, there's a summary that has all the paving. So that 10.5 comes up with the Springfield Road, 9.5 million, 700,000 on veterans, 250,000 on East Wash, and 50,000 additional street maintenance that's in with the MFT, the heat scarifying and all that stuff. And then you go to the TIF, Camp and Riverside, which is part of that MFT project below to make up the shortfall from the RBI funds is 290,000. There's a match on the trailhead, 125,000, 30,000 for striping, and $100,000 for maintenance in Bass Pro. The next section will be hotel motel, 405,000 for concrete fence repairs, paving and fields. Part of that, it was the bid that we had last week. We talked about the east side parking lot. Additional upgrades, 94,500, a new truck at 45,000, and then some more repairs of concrete and stuff along the riverfront at 25,000.
And just real quick, Jeff, I want to point that out. If you look at that line item, the riverfront trees, the railings, concrete repair, you'll see that 25,000 for each year. And I think that's a prudent thing to do. We need to keep that riverfront clear. We have a beautiful riverfront, and it cost us more money to catch up, having not maintained that through the years. So I think that's money well spent.
And then water and sewer, there's 400,000 water main, 200,000 sewer main, and then that's water main on Springfield Road at 2.5, and that's supposed to be going out to bid next week, I believe, is what Cord said. And then down in gaming, the boys, what was their varsity field before they switched over, it's in there for next year at 2 million. And then the MFT, you'll see 1.2 million of the RBI funds for Camp and Riverside, and 1.1 million of street maintenance. So that's what's in this year's budget.
Yeah, and I just want to point out on that Camp in Riverside, keep in mind that's a Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, or old PUATS project, that's finally coming to fruition, so.
And then I'll go back and recap, looking at the next 4 years. Robert's got some additional parking lots and building things budgeted out. Police has the other half of the station I spoke to, in addition to squad cars and the rest of the Axon contract. Fire, some more AEDs to be replaced, monitors, air packs, a new engine in 25-26, which has already been ordered. And then we're looking at a central station, would be property purchase, engineering, and construction, and then wrap it up with an ambulance there at the bottom. Solid waste has another garbage truck. The street department has 2 more plow trucks. And in addition to the paving maintenance, estimated at $1 million a year additional to what's below. On the back, you'll see there's a couple ideas. Pinecrest Phase 3 next year, and 2 years from now, Centennial. And then the years after that haven't been labeled yet. I know there's some other items. I'm sure we'll get into that tonight that people want to talk
Yeah,
about some
so
of the roads.
the Pinecrest one, talking to Jeff, we talked about this today. The reason why we bumped it out with the Springfield Road, we want to complete that whole project that came in a little over estimated projections. So it's not that we're going to not complete Pinecrest. It actually came up in a discussion today, but we just felt more comfortable bumping that out the next year. We'll have the engineering done and ready to go on it, so. What else did I want to point out here to make you guys aware? And obviously, this is just for discussion, and if you guys have, other thoughts or things that you don't see on here or tweaks that you want to make, our goal is to have those discussions before we incorporate it in the entire budget as a whole and bring it back before the council for approval.
Okay, continue with Camp Street TIF. There's a little bit more money on that trailhead, HVAC at Bass Pro Shop, some more money for sidewalk improvements in West Washington TIF and slab jacking, some more money in Bass Pro maintenance, additional striping and sidewalks out in year 5. Hotel motel, more repairs and stuff around the facility up at East Side Drive, 2 additional trucks in the next 5 years. There's $100,000 to replace the bell tower out here in the park when the park's complete after this year.
Hey, Jeff, can we?
Yes.
Let's touch on that, because outside of Commissioner Hill and myself, I don't think any of the other commissioners, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think they were shared what that's, and I wouldn't mind having a discussion. I don't know that we know how much it's gonna cost, honestly. We don't even have a design yet. So I think, Ty, if you don't mind stepping up, Ty was hopeful just to plug it in as a placeholder for now. Ty, do you mind touching on
Yeah,
it?
it's a SWAT at this point. We're just trying to plug something in. The bells were at the corner there at Main and Washington. They've been since taken down. The goal has been to repurpose and put them somewhere else, visible in the community. We don't really have an idea of the structure. We are working with Midwest Engineering Associates to put that plan together, get a concept and some ballpark pricing, see if the council has an appetite for it. And that's really where we're at. And the thought was to put a placeholder in there. If we can do it, certainly for less than $100,000, that would be ideal. The Levy Park is an ideal location for it, very visible, and so that's something we'd incorporate in after the next phase of the project.
Yeah. And then the next item on the gateway signage, not to jump ahead, but while Ty's standing, we're undergoing that branding initiative, and we've had this plugged in there for a number of years, probably since we created the capital plan. We just kind of keep shifting it. We want to keep that in there because the goal is, after the branding project is complete, come back and add some new signage.
And how many locations would that be, Mayor? I know.
What did we come up with, Ty? Like 4 or 5?
There's a number. I think it's
Yeah.
working through with IDOT and adjacent property owners, but any entry point into the city. So North Main, South Main,
Meadow.
coming in from Meadow, yeah,
Yeah.
Washington.
That number seems light.
It is.
It may
light
not get
for
us
now.
there all the way. It depends on the signage and
Yeah.
what you come up with, because even the more typical signs that you see out there they're probably, one of them is probably 25,000.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, and it'll be something we'll want to look at. The consultant's going to provide us a kind of a broad spectrum of, here's all the areas that you can impact that, and it's going to be phased in over a period of years. It can't happen overnight. It'd be too expensive, but there's a lot of areas where you can put that out there, but certainly the gateway signage are going to be the most visible.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ty.
And then wrapping up hotel motel was the $25,000 that the mayor spoke to before on the riverfront. Water sewer, you'll see there's a couple F-250s in year 2 and 4. And then water main sewer improvements year over year. And then finally that North Main water treatment plant improvement. Getting into gaming, so there'll be the last 2 boys baseball fields. And then the East Side Addition dome or another field that yet to be determined, where we're going next up there. But you'll see that in years 3, 4, and 5. And then finally, street maintenance, you'll see that 900,000 MFT has been budgeted year over year.
I did have something, it's more of a question for Corey. Which are the next 2 that we're earmarking?
Hey, Corey, do you mind stepping up there just so they can hear you on TV? Thank you.
Yep, so this fall would be 8 and 9, the two smaller ones. I'm sorry, this fall would be field 10, the other varsity field. So they did 7 last year and they're putting the backstep on it now. So this fall, this upcoming fiscal year 24-25 would be field 10. Then the following year would be 8 and 9. So then the baseball quad would be all the way done at that time. So the only two after that would be 5 and 6 that are left, the two small ones that face each other in the middle of the complex. So Dave Rogers Field this fall, and then the following year, next fall, would be fields 8 and 9. So we'd have 8 total turf fields after that.
So was your recommendation, I think Jeff had reached out to you today, just because I had not talked to you about that? We hadn't talked about the addition or / the dome.
Yeah.
We kind of put that on the back burner when Doug was here, but the addition, I was trying to get a feel from you or Jeff. Do we want to push it off that far, or you want to get the fields done and then we can focus on that afterwards?
Yeah, so
How about those two smaller ones?
Jeff and I talked about it briefly. Kind of in my mind, I think it makes sense to finish 5 and 6, whether that's a multi-purpose, whatever, lacrosse, soccer type of addition, just be all the way done with everything outside, field-wise, concrete-wise. If that includes field lights, we can go down that road type of thing. But I think we would finish what we started instead of, It doesn't make a ton of sense for tournament directors to come in or whatever. We want to run a softball tournament. 2 of the fields are not synthetic turf, and those ones, they drain the worst on the complex just from the way that they sit kind of down in the valley too. So our brief conversation today was, hey, let's knock those out and be done type of thing, and then either pick if we want to, whether it's a dome or trying to build another turf, full-size baseball field on the soccer fields, or the expansion. Materials aren't getting any cheaper, so not that we're trying to push things off or speed things up, but every year that we think about that expansion or wait on it, we know that those material costs will probably continue to rise.
Well, the other component there with that expansion too, I know we had an interested party that wanted to be part of that.
Yeah.
So we'll have that discussion later, but I'd be curious, my concern was if we push them off, would
Yeah.
they then lose interest? So that may be worth a discussion.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's not in the cards for this year, but
Yeah.
just putting it on the radar.
I think they're still very much interested
Okay.
from the
Okay.
I get that question every couple months type of thing.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
yeah, I think we'd still be looking to do that.
Okay.
Just to clarify on Jeff's notation, there's a 2 in parentheses, but we're really talking about 3.
He's talking under the description.
Yeah, just
There's a
a
two
2.
in parentheses.
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner. Ignore the description on that. So it's just 1 field this year, 2 the following year.
It's
And
the
then
one
if we do
big
that,
field
Yeah.
left.
if we
Yeah,
do that
that's-
multi-sport,
Because in my math, I knew
replace the
there's
5 or
3 of
6.
them, and then there's only 2 of them. Okay.
Yep.
So I think what we've talked about, why the number seems so big for that one field for Dave Rogers, but we've talked about if that's going to go back to being the varsity field, that would include ripping those dugouts out like we just did on 2, new backstop, and that would include stadium seating or something along those lines, or that scoreboard is approaching the end of its useful life too, so also roughly 15 years ago, the hill was stabilized. So it's something that we would want to look at before we make that investment, and that was a larger cost back in the day too. So I think that those would all be things we'd want to look at with that project of if this is going to be our #1 destination field type of thing with the big scoreboard and whatnot, we would want to, that's why that number I think is higher. So.
and then we had that temp fence in there too.
Yeah, and then as we visited Rantoul and other complexes like I spoke about last week, we have our, at Eastside, that white portable plastic fence, which isn't a great look on a brand new turf field. It's been there a long time, and it's worked very well for IESA and all those tournaments that we host. But we've looked at Sporta Fence. It's essentially galvanized chain link on wheels, and it comes out and it's 6 or 8 feet tall, and it matches your existing fence. If you need to do temp fence for a softball tournament or IESA baseball and so on and so forth, which we'd like to use those premier fields, just the fence is too big or too long for the younger folks.
So by the end of 25, 26 is when all 8 diamonds will be turf. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Any other questions for Corey? No? All
Thank
right,
you.
Thanks, Corey.
Yep. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, you guys got anything for, any other comments or questions on the Capitol?
I have a couple comments,
Yeah.
Mayor. First of all, and it's not really any questions, I'm so impressed with the improvements at Eastside. I'm supportive because I know that it's tough to quantify, but the amount of people that brings to the community, helps support our businesses is just essential. So I'm very happy to see it. And I loved seeing here, you know, you have a dome or some sort of an addition mentioned as well. Years ago, someone mentioned to me hockey and how well we could do with hockey, and it's not something that I've ever been a part of. But looking around at some of the other facilities out there, they make an enormous amount of money bringing people into the community. I'm so impressed with that facility, and it's just been a staple, even when it was to its point where it is getting run down and we didn't know how to fund it. I've kept it going, and I'm really happy with how it is now. As far as the road projects, I'm excited about what we're doing this year. Oakwood is one of those things that I wanted to mention publicly because it's not something that we're ignoring. We're not forgetting about it, but we're not ready to go into that. We have some expensive projects out in the future with Oakwood and Centennial and some long roads that we're not ignoring. Sometimes you look in social media and people, they're seeing what is wrong and they're not recognizing maybe some of the things, the accomplishments that we've made. But man, if you look at the amount of money we're spending on streets this year and go back, 7 years ago, we were lucky if we spent $1 million.
Yeah.
We've just come a long way. So, and to your point, Mayor, you mentioned a few minutes ago, the riverfront. 4th of July is usually when I notice it, and then I forget about it because I'm not down there often. But what an opportunity we have with some of those areas, and I'm happy that we're putting in some money to make sure that the riverfront is kept up.
Yeah, I agree. Any other discussions on the Capitol? You guys comfortable with it? If you're not, if you think of something or talk to your respective department head and want to seek any changes, just let us know. We can have those discussions. You know, I just want to give credit to this council. I look back in discussing with someone on the Peoria side of the river today about, you know, I mentioned a lot of these capital projects in the state of the city, and they're like, wow, that's a big number for East Peoria. It's a big number this year. Looking at, 34 million with the street stuff built into it. That's a big number, but, you know, I go back to having a capital plan, and you think back, you know, 10 years ago, and we're spending about $1 million a year on streets on a good year, if that. A lot of years it was like 600,000.
That's right.
And you're just going to fall further and further behind. But my point today, when we had this discussion on the Peoria side of the river, was you look at Springfield Road, for example. That's a big dollar amount. But you got to tackle these projects one at a time. You got to start somewhere. And to Commissioner Sutherland's point, 5 years ago, doesn't make a lot of sense to tear up a road, put a new surface on it, and not replace the infrastructure underneath. So I just want to applaud you guys. I know these are some big numbers, but I think financially we're in a good spot. We've been prudent with people's tax dollars. I do want to comment on that just a little bit. When you look at this capital, you know, because to Commissioner Decker's point, I don't think the public understands sometimes, like, for example, a police station. Oh, you're spending $20 million. You need to be fixing streets. When you look at how we're paying for that, there's a whole dynamic behind everything we're doing on this sheet. And specifically by fund, when you look at some of these funds, these monies have to be spent in a specific way. So I'd like to point that out. But I just appreciate this council. I appreciate the staff and all the work that these guys have done to get us to this point. But I think it's a good plan. I think we'll have a solid budget again this year. So, but anyone in the audience wish to make a comment, address council? No? Comments from the council? Commissioner Decker, you have any other comments?
The only thing I thought I'd say while possibly it's being televised, there was a social media post this week criticizing or talking about wanting to come speak with the city council regarding, I think, the allowing of Dairy Queen to be placed where it is. And I just thought I would take the opportunity to say that that property, it was within code, it was appropriate for the area. Those projects don't specifically come before the city council. So if a business brings something forward and it matches what is in code, and that's not our area. So I did want to mention that. I didn't want to get on social media, but because I've heard it multiple times, I just thought I would mention it publicly.
Yep, thank
That's
you,
it, Mayor.
Commissioner Hill?
Well, just to, I guess to now leverage off of that comment, that I actually had a conversation with the owner of Twisty Treat, and again, assured we did not go out seeking Dairy Queen. It was a private commercial property and sold privately without our intervention, encouragement, no, I don't say tax incentives to bring that development here. The owner had saw, the Dairy Queen owner that saw that as a viable place. And people look at that like, why would you build it right there? Like he just said. And if you look at why do they build a Walgreens right across from CVS? I mean, I don't even know if that went into the strategy, but you put things, one, where there's traffic, and that particular property is just short of the intersection of 150. So again, we didn't have a play in encouraging them to get here. Going to the budget, I'm glad every year because prior to running, that was one of the things that I had said we needed to do better on, and I pledged that I would do my part to try to bring more and more money to the streets. And I think last year the original budget amount was like $7 million, and some of those got due to scheduling got pushed to this year. And then again, the Springfield Road being a huge project, and I get again dovetail off of I see the social media where again it's one of the things that, as the mayor just pointed out on this capital sheet, as far as the source of money, this is not the property tax money being spent here. Everything that was in this capital plan, you can go through, and I plan on doing it myself or asking Jeff to pull it, but where is the property tax? And I know based on years past, we are financially obligated to pay the police and fire pension in last year, and I have workman's comp, IMF, IMRF, there was certain money, we had 70,000 or whatever the audit amount we had, and that's our tax, our property tax money, that's it. Folks, when you say, what's my property tax, it's gone. All the capital that sits in front of you today is not coming from your property tax. And so, we spend it. I'd even seen some recent comments about, they should spend, I forget which money they were disagreeing with on some trucks from Public Works, because I just passed one, it was all rusted and looking horrible. Well, look on here. One of the things that we do, we try to plan on this 5-year plan, and we've got dump trucks and we've got garbage trucks. They come as we need them, and they're brought forward. So it's not, it might look bad, and part of it might have to do with being a salt vehicle that it's accelerated. But I'm proud of what we've done up here and how we've allocated the money.
Hey, Mayor, off his point, do you have an estimate where we are on both the police and fire pensions, our percentage?
Yeah, so, I mentioned, not off the top of my head, I want to say maybe the high 50s, does that sound right? Higher now? But I want to bring that up, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, years ago, when Commissioner Decker and I were both commissioners at the time on a previous council, we made the decision to start funding those pensions at 100% to get ahead of the curve, ahead of what the law required us to do. And by doing that, we flatten our curve much quicker, which will put us in a better financial position than most municipalities. At the time, it's a lot of money, but at the end of the day, it's an obligation that we have, and I stand by that decision, and we're better off for it. And here's why I think that's crucial to bring up now. I mentioned it in the State of the City address. Because of some of the things that we've done as a council on the financial side, we actually had our bond rating, improved. And one of the things they looked at was our debt obligations. And we're going in the right direction versus a lot of municipalities that aren't. So I feel very confident in our financial performance and what we've done, including with this capital plan.
But I think, Mayor, along that point, it's been no secret, I disagree with the mandate placed by our state, 90% funding mark. Not saying they shouldn't be funded, but I just don't believe in the 90%, especially by the year 2040. They've looked at many times decreasing that. There have been attempts at legislation, and there are conversations all the time that I believe they'll have to. Otherwise, it will cause, not East Peoria, but it'll cause some communities out there to go bankrupt trying to get to that point. And when they do, East Peoria stands, or when we get to that point, we stand to really be able to, then we'd be able to utilize that money to either make it so, get us to a certain point faster, or free up even more money for us to use other places. So I'm glad we're where we are, and I knew we were doing well, and it's nice to hear that we're above that curve.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have that?
Yeah, the police is funded at 63% and fire is 64%.
Yeah.
Cool.
So keep in mind, when we started down this road with that funding, we were in the 40s.
Yes.
So we're definitely going in the right direction. And, I want to give Jeff a lot of credit on that because he kind of guided that ship and he's kept us on course there. So I think it's the right thing to do. And to your point, a lot of what we do is, looking down the road, not where it's going to put us today. So better position us down the road. Anything else, Commissioner?
Nope,
Hill?
thank you.
No? All right. Commissioner Sutherland.
Yeah. I'm going to start out by saying that I think more money needs to be spent, even more than we are now, on the streets. But I also want the street department to understand that they can't go faster than I can put pipe in front of them. So in other words, like the Springfield Road project was kind of a surprise on me and my budget, my plans inside of my head, how I wanted the mains to be put in place in this town. And it's going to be a financial struggle for me to do this project. So it's going to slow me down on what I wanted to do probably for the next 18 to 24 months because of this project paying for it, unless my friends in the finance department can steal some money from somebody else that didn't need it. So when they come up with these projects, I'm in support of these projects 100%, but I need over 2 years lead time. 2 years. So if the street department wants to work on, let's just say, East Washington Street, for instance, I need 2 years to get everything that I need to get from the EPA and to get my money in order and get the manpower and get the bids done, the engineering done. Before I was up here, I knew there was bureaucracy, but this state is horrible with bureaucrats. I think that you guys that have a problem getting a gun permit or a concealed carry or have a license plate problem with your cars or your trucks or something, I think that a large part of the state employees down in Springfield are still working from home or what were just not too long ago, and they're getting nothing done, zero, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope that somebody takes the bull by the horns and straightens things out to where I can keep going. I do think that each one of these departments, and I didn't talk to anybody before I'm about ready to say this. The fire, this city in a whole, we need to fix this swimming pool issue for our youth in this area. And I don't care if we team up with the Park District, we go in.
That was 100% the Park District, and I strongly encourage you to speak out on that.
Well, the Park District hasn't taken the bull by the horns as of yet.
Yeah.
So, but I believe that just like East Side and the kids playing have access to softball and baseball and the track and the high school football field and the soccer field. Somehow, if the park district isn't doing it on their own, maybe we should sit down and have a powwow with them and see if we can't get something going. Because like the last time I brought the subject up, I believe it was in Bloomington Normal area, they just put a new swimming pool in. I think their swimming pool ended up being $18 million. That's nothing the city can do on our own, not our size, I don't think. But if we can team up with the park district, maybe. And I'm not even so sure if that maybe is a true statement. But until we have a meeting and talk about it and see if we're interested in doing it, I'm hoping that we're interested in doing it. I think that would be something that I would like to leave behind to last for a few decades. I also want to say that the Cedar Street project has been delayed, which is a godsend on my end, because we were moving pipes and getting ready for this project with no assistance from the state at all, and it was their idea, it was their deal. I'm all for the hierarchy of our city to pull in the state representatives and state senators and seeing if we can't squeeze some money out of them, because no matter how you want to look at it, my manpower is my money, and I've been putting manpower and money into a project that I didn't have anything to do with, nor do I care if it ever gets done. So if the state wants to do stuff and strap projects on any municipality, I think that they need to put their money where their mouth is, instead of having these grandiose governor construction projects and leaving a lot of the cleanup and the money left to the people around them, which had nothing to do with it. The Springfield Road project, like I said earlier, is going to take up a lot of my budget. And so after the street department gets done with the Springfield Road project, I just want them to take a deep breath and bring my department into the conversation before they make a decision on the next set of roads and streets, to where I can say whether I'm capable and ready to get there in front of you over a 2-year advance notice. That's it.
Okay, just real quick, Commissioner. Ty, do we have an update or a accord on Cedar Street? Any updates from IDOT anyway on a timeline? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, they sent an email out just yesterday. Looks like they've assigned a new engineer to the project. So we've got a meeting scheduled here shortly. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, but it does sound like they're going to proceed to move forward with that. What timeline, what funding, I'm not sure. I mean, they did, state just announced their budget, but I haven't reviewed it.
Okay.
They're gonna move forward, and they haven't stated when it got pushed to yet, or they don't know that?
I'll know during the meeting. I'll probably find out more during that time frame.
Okay.
Sounds like the engineer that was on it probably retired, would be my guess, and then they've obviously assigned a new engineer to it, so it'll be
Okay.
picking back up.
Well, once we know, we'll keep you guys abreast.
And Mayor, did you know what and this may have been said, and I've just missed it, the future intention is with the bridge is it to try to, I don't know, repair, reconstruct, whatever, in the current, or has that even been discussed
They
yet?
have not even tipped their hand, because my understanding, and Ty and I, Rick was probably in on that meeting. This has probably been 2-3 years ago, we met with IDOT, and the price tag to replace that was like 300 some million, something ridiculous. So it didn't sound like they were moving too fast on doing anything with that
Right.
bridge.
And I think you and I might have spoken about it, but I've heard it, a couple people recently, the concerns over that bridge and the style, and just knowing that how old that pathway is now, it makes me anxious, hoping that they're able to figure something out, how to move forward.
I agree. Commissioner Mingus?
Yeah, not much more to add, other than it's nice when we have this meeting to pretty much know what we're going to talk about. I think the council and under the mayor's leadership has done a nice job of having a 5-year plan, we know what's going to be on here. It's nice to review it, but I like the additions to East Side. I think that's going to be a positive for our community. Springfield Road is needed. Mayor said it before the meeting, that road touches a lot of our citizens in one way or another. So, I mean, I think that while not everybody lives off of it, I think a lot of people drive it, so that's a good project to have. Just appreciative of department heads and Jeff and all the work that's been put in, and you know, spending 31 million some odd dollars is a lot of money, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. The city's moving in the right direction, and we're making some improvements, and that's a really positive thing. So I like where we're going.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just kind of finish on this note, thank department heads, thank Jeff once again for all their work getting this stuff compiled. So the game plan, we have a council meeting next week that's going to have a pretty full agenda, just to give you guys a heads up. It's going to be a lot of good stuff on there. But as far as the budget goes, Jeff, we'll put that together, and we plan to bring it back on its first reading in the second, it'd be the 19th of March, and then the second reading would be the first, April 2nd, I believe, would be the first meeting in April. So right now, that's our game plan. But I would encourage you once again, reach out to your department heads, and if you guys want to seek any changes, now's the time. With that, I'd seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are adjourned until we meet again.